Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Psychology, Period 5. Now, I am going to be talking about long-term memory today. And we're recording this, so hopefully it's going to come out in good shape. I'm going to expand my little window there. Now, we're in Chapter 6. This is a separate one. I took some slides out of the regular presentation and actually added quite a few more. So we're going to be doing that now. Let's proceed. All right. So first of all, for review, memory is the process of encoding sensation, perception, figuring out what it is, then storing it, and then retrieving it, which we mentioned is basically what we call memory. And today, of course, we're going to talk about long-term memory. Now, long-term memory, as you learned from your text, includes vast stores of information. We're not sure how much, but that's, the more we find out about the brain, the more we learn that we can store. Virtually unlimited. Some people believe that some can remember more than others. Other people, a lot of psychologists say no, everybody's got the same capacity, the same ability. We just have to learn how to use it. And of course, this is our long-term, which is our permanent or relatively permanent memories. And what are we storing there long-term? Anything that is important or novel, interesting, kind of fun facts that we have. There's always information we take with us that may not, be useful all the time, but we enjoy it, and so it tends to stick in our brain. Okay, now, this is from your text. As far as what is stored in long-term memory, declarative and non-declarative memory. And we're not going to spend a lot of time, one slide on non-declarative and more time on declarative. Now, here's another way to look at it. You can see when you're studying for a test, you're going to have to actually bring up this information, jam it into your brain, and recall that for a specific purpose, which is the test. Whereas implicit memory, so you're just driving in your car, you're lying by the pool, whatever, you're listening to music. You're not trying to remember the songs. In fact, you're not even aware of it, but you remember the lyrics and you can sing along. So question for the end, how do we turn both of these situations into both implicit, or turn both of these situations from the same thing, remembering lyrics? It can be both implicit and it can be explicit in another situation. We'll talk about that at the end, though. That's a question for another time. Now, non-declarative, of course, implicit, procedural memory, riding a bike, what we call muscle memory. If you've been in sports, you probably know this term. When you're, the whole practice makes perfect. You go over and over and over and over. You no longer have to think about it. Okay? You think about it at first, but you practice it. And eventually you don't have to think. You don't have to try to remember how to field a ground ball, throw it to first. You don't have to remember how to do a backflip on your bike or on your skateboard or anything like that. These are the things that become implicit. You don't think about them. They just happen. Okay, you've conditioned yourself or you've learned. Now, declarative memory, semantic and episodic. Now, I'm going to have to expand this a little bit right there. Okay, so declarative memory we've got. Let's continue. Oops, let's get back to this. There we go. We can expand that now. Okay, so semantic and episodic, both in explicit memory. Consciously recalled or declared is one way to remember it. That's how I do. Memorization of facts that can be recalled, and life events, so experiences. So remember facts, remember life events, and it falls into these two categories, okay, semantic and episodic. Now, episodic, of course, the personal experiences we have, and you can see up in that cartoon there, that's an episode. It's something from your memory. We went to the apple orchard with the friends, and we picked apples, and that's something you'll remember probably for the rest of your life. If they're your good friends and you had a lot of fun, you're going to remember that episode of your life. Now, semantic memory, in that thing, you also have information going into this, and you may be one of those person that has vast stores of information you just find interesting and you remember. Okay, so you're picking the apples with your friends and you say, hey, did you know this about apples? Or did you know Johnny Appleseed wandered around tossing apple seeds? Whatever. You're going to bring up these stories that you have this information about apples, and your friends will look at you and say, wow, I didn't know that. And part of their episodic memory will be that you can remember these facts, and it'll become, possibly a little more cool for them. They may even ask you, how do you know this stuff? And you'll say, well, I don't know. I just know this information. And I think we've all probably been in a situation like that where we've had the information. People are kind of amazed. But it's not from experience. We just know it. But it will become part of the semantic information. The semantic memory will become part of the episodic memory for everybody else. Now, here's something I want you to remember. Memory is reconstructive. Memory is reconstructive, not reproductive, is something I added. Does not function like an audio or video recording. We don't just say, hey, do you remember this event? And we go back and rewind and get that. It doesn't function like that. We tend to reconstructive. We build or reconstruct memories. We piece them together from highlights or something somebody tells us. Do you remember this? We may say no at first. They'll give us information. And they'll say, oh, yeah, I remember that. And then you'll start remembering. You'll start rebuilding, reconstructing a memory of that. Now, the thing is, it may or may not be that accurate. Okay? They'll start you down a path of remembering something or reconstructing a memory, but it'll be influenced by several things, which we'll get to in just a second. So, but it is reconstructive, and we'll reconstruct a memory several times over the course of our lives. And it may be a little bit different every time we reconstruct it. So, have you ever disagreed with someone when discussing a memory and then rebuilt that? Yes. Okay, let's get back to that apple orchard. You and your friends are going through that. You may all get together later and talk about that event. And you will all remember something different from that. And you together, all of you will reconstruct a group memory, a memory that you will all move forward with from that point. But it will be built from things that you all remember and that are all a little bit different. And some people will say, I don't remember that. And they'll challenge your memory of something. And you may agree with them, or they may convince you that it's different, or you may convince them. Anyway, but it is reconstructive. Now, how can we reconstruct? I'm not going to talk about mnemonics right now. I want you to click on this and watch the video. But we're all familiar with that, such as how do we remember the colors of the rainbow, or how to remember the order of the planets, in our solar system. So that is something, anyway, watch that. So part of this video is to tell you to go watch this video. The link is here, but it's in it's in Canvas, in the module, as well as in this video, if you were to bring this up in this video, and the PowerPoint will be loaded. Now, schemas. We're talking about reconstructing memory. Now, reconstructive memory processes influenced by schemas. What does that mean? It means there's other information we have, like we have information of the apples that became part of our episodic memory of going to the orchard and picking apples with our friends. So we have prior knowledge, we have prior information, and even assumptions. Okay, we assume the story about Johnny Appleseed is correct, but we're not sure. But we have this information, and that's related. Schemas are related information, and they affect our memory because they become part of the reconstruction of a memory. So the information from a schema, and I'll show you a couple schemas in a second, may not be part of the event, but they will become part of the memory. So if I say tree, comes to mind. In fact, using the other situation, you may say apple tree, you may say orange tree, whatever. But there are things that come to mind when I say tree, okay, that may become part of a memory. Let's get to something that may make it more clear. What if I said Santa Claus? If I was recreating a memory of a Christmas, and somebody may say, oh, I remember when I caught Santa Claus, or we caught Santa Claus putting presents under the tree, and we watched, and this kind of thing. So my information, my memory of that event will be affected by all the things I've learned about Santa Claus over time. It may not have happened. I mean, I may remember Santa Claus as somebody with a big belly and all of these things, but it may not actually have been something I saw. But it becomes part of my memory simply because the information is part of my schema. Again, Easter egg hunt. I'm not going to bring all of this in from my egg knowledge, and clearly remember a lot more than we think, but it could become part of that. Now, Getting to schemas and memory activity, if we were in class, I'd be able to have a little activity with you, put up these slides, and you would create schemas. You would use them. You'd actually create a schema to help you remember all of them. But unfortunately, we don't have to. Hopefully, we can get back to class and do that. Now, flashbulb memory. Flashbulb memory, you guys aren't familiar with flashbulbs, but a flashbulb is something that would, a bulb would go off. We're familiar with flashes on our cameras. But what it is, it's a brief, quick, very vivid memory for events that may shock us. Okay, there's something in your life that, wow, when you heard about it or experienced it, it was highly emotional. It was very shocking. So you have a very vivid memory of something, or you do have a vivid memory. The problem with this, even though you're confident in what you remember, it's not that accurate. Okay, flashbulb memories are very vivid, but the emotional nature of them make them not as accurate as you may be led to believe, or you may think they are. So we look at those with historic events. There is, and I will send you a link later, a little video about a woman who remembers when she was a kid at 9/11, and she has a memory of that, or at least she thought she did, and she was told that her memory wasn't possible, that she was not in the situation or the location to have that memory. So she took information about 9/11. She had a schema of information about 9/11, and she had created a memory that she remembered as a child based on the 9/11 and hearing of that and being very emotionally affected. She actually created a memory. Okay, so she had, in essence, a flashbulb memory that was influenced by schemas. So it was very vivid, her memory. It was very emotional, but it was not accurate. And that's the thing about flashbulb memory. Generally, it's not very accurate, which leads us to eyewitness testimony. Okay? If you were to witness a crime, okay, your memory of that, you'd have a very vivid memory. It might be shocking. It might be emotional. Okay? But unfortunately, eyewitness testimony it's not as we're led to believe, where we look at a row of people and we tell the cops who was involved or who committed the crime. It's that person. No, they're not always wearing a mask. The thing about eyewitness testimony is because it's so emotional, it's not always accurate. And the police have figured this out. Okay, so they have to be very, very careful when they're talking to people, talking to eyewitnesses, because one thing, they can't, if somebody sees a photograph of a suspect before seeing a lineup, chances are very good they're going to pick that person out. Okay, they're going to associate the suspect with somebody the police think is doing it, and they will just confirm it. Okay, if you're viewed at the same time rather than one at a time, it can be confusing. Race comes into it. It can be different. Leading questions, how they ask you questions about stuff, how, if they ask you about a certain person who is involved, the types of questions may lead you to conclude that person did that. Now, if there's a weapon is highly emotional, okay, highly vivid, and that will definitely affect it. And what's interesting is people will really be focused on a weapon and not on the person doing it, which makes it even more confusing. Now, I'm going to lend you to a video, or lead you to these if you have time. We won't be testing on those, but these are just interesting because people have been sent to prison through eyewitness testimony when they actually didn't do that. And somebody can be so sure of their testimony. No, I saw this. But it isn't accurate. And the more we find out, the more we know how inaccurate it is. Anyway, something worth watching there. Now, back to our first question. We're running out of time. How could remembering the lyrics to a song be implicit in one situation and explicit in another? If you're lying by the pool remembering the lyrics, then that's very easy. It comes to you very naturally. But if you were sitting at a desk and I asked you to remember the lyrics to a song, you'd actually have to stop, think about it, and go back and use tools like remembering the tune to try to remember it. And so now you're trying to declare that very, very different situation. It wouldn't come to you naturally. You would actually have to go through the motions and remember it. Okay? Anyway, that's it for now. That's the end of our presentation, and I hope you enjoyed it and hope you learned something, and we will talk to you soon in another presentation. Have a great day.